right, good evening, good evening. Make sure I'm live and we can start. All right, so today the title of the discussion is The Love That Breaks You Open. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the death and the rebirth cycle. And we're going to talk about this from a lot of different perspectives. I want to talk about this from a perspective of heartbreak. I want to talk about this from a perspective of losing a job, stepping into a better version of you where you have to kill an old version of you. We're going to talk about this constant cycle that we all go through, this death and rebirth cycle. So just to start it off with a statement, right? The mystical initiate does not fear death. They have lived it 1,000 times in heartbreak and loss and letting go. And each time they return truer, right? This is a common theme of a deep or an enriched, right, human experience, is that we experience this dying over and over again throughout our life. Whether it's losing a loved one, right, family member, friend, spouse, right, whether it's losing an opportunity, right, you start a business, okay, and there's an identity that you attach or that your ego creates with that business, and you see yourself performing very well in it, and it does not go as planned. There's an identity that you create. There's a version of you that you create with your woman, with your man, right? And you can see the end of your life with them. Matter of fact, your love transcends this life. You don't even think about death, right? Because our natural inclination is to say, I will love you beyond this lifetime. I will love you forever. I will love you until infinity. Right, I will love you in whatever lifetime comes after this, in whatever situation happens after this, right? This is the natural way that we view love. So I'm going to talk about death. I'm going to talk about loss from a very spiritual perspective, because we cannot simply talk about light. We have to talk about dark, right? There are lessons of gratitude. Right. There are lessons of appreciation that we gain through going through the fire of loss. Right. It's as if time stops for a moment, and this experience makes you cherish everything that you have just a little bit more. It makes you want to stick in the present moment just a little bit longer. Right. It's always a very humbling experience. I haven't been to a funeral in a while, but when we lose someone that's close to us, it is as if when we're in that ceremony, time stops. And it's a very disrupting feeling when you go back into reality and you realize everything is flowing just the same. Right? The mail still being delivered, work still going. Everything is still moving at this fast speed, even though you've just suffered this loss. Right? And it makes you really want to cherish the time that you have with loved ones, with your friends, with your family, even more. All right. And so could we truly enjoy the good times that we have without experiencing loss? Could you truly enjoy, the blessings, the prosperity that's at the finish line, the quote unquote finish line, if it wasn't for those times you had to eat ramen noodles, a pack of ramen noodles for 3 days? Right. And so this topic is near and dear to me, right? Because I've experienced some loss, as we all have, right? But it's been in these moments where I've really been able to find out who I am. And these moments really shaped me and allowed me to press forward as a different version of myself, right? I've been homeless, right? I've been evicted, had cars repossessed, cars, plural, repossessed, right? Woman that I thought I was going to marry passed away, right? Have been through some things, right? And all of us have. This is common on the human experience. But in those lows, we learn to appreciate the highs even more. We learn to really cherish and hold on to the blessings that are presenting themselves to us in our life even more. All right? So the sacred silence before becoming. All right. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Okay, so there comes a moment when the soul begins to ache, not from lack, but from fullness too long unexpressed. This ache is holy. Okay, this ache is the whisper of death, not as an end, but as a midwife to your becoming. In every season of our life, be it the wilt of a failing career, the burial of a relationship, or the slow unraveling of self, we are not being forsaken. We are being initiated, okay? So John 12:24, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit, okay? So I gave a lecture not too long ago, and we talked about nature. And we talked about what we can learn by studying nature. It was actually quite a while ago, right? But what we talked about specifically was the seed, this concept of the seed. Bible always talks about seeds, right? And there's a lot that we can learn in nature. One thing that's very symbolic of the journey of a seed, the journey of a plant, right, is that a seed, when you plant this seed and it is in this dirt, okay, you can think of that as a time where you are in a grieving situation. You're in a difficult situation. You're experiencing some kind of death, losing a job, losing a car, losing a relationship, losing a loved one, whatever the case may be, right? But you are in this darkness. You're in this darkness, okay? And you don't know what the next step is going to be, but you are just doing your best, right, to execute to the best of your ability in the next possible moment. What is the next choice I have? What is the best decision I can make? And so you make that decision. And sometimes you don't know when you're going to get out this darkness. Right? This is the same way that a plant grows, right? When you plant a seed, the seed begins to grow underneath the dirt, but it doesn't know up and down, right? The roots begin to take hold. It gets stronger, right? There's lessons that you have to learn in the darkness. You get more clarity in the darkness of what you want. A failed relationship teaches you what you want more, right? Losing a parent, losing a close relative, right, teaches you how to appreciate people more, right? Losing a job, losing an opportunity pushes you to work harder on the next one, pushes you to really cherish the moment and whatever opportunity is presented to you next, right? So we'll see that as we're going through these dark times, we are being molded in all kinds of ways. Not only is your strength being molded, but your authenticity is also being molded, right? You go through difficult situations, and now you have to strip back the veil of, okay, who did I have to present myself as in that relationship? Okay, why did that relationship go wrong? What could I have done better, right? It's always this coming back to yourself, right? It's as if your soul gives you these opportunities and says, all right, life is precious here. You're only here for a blip of time in the infinite span of the universe, right? You're here for a blip of time in this lifetime, right? How are you going to appreciate these moments? It's always this calling back to self, this calling back to giving yourself intimacy, to being vulnerable with yourself, to giving yourself that time to grieve, to looking at yourself, telling yourself you love you, telling yourself you're going to make it through this situation together, right? It's always this very divine dance that you're doing with yourself. And all the while you're expanding, you're growing, you're learning how to embrace the present moment more. Right? All of these lessons come through loss. Okay, so the fall when foundations crumble. Right, so a quote from Michelangelo: I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. Okay, the mystics say the soul descends in order to rise. The tower must fall for the temple to be built. So too in life, when your job dissolves, when love walks away, when your name no longer opens doors, this is not the end. It is the portal. Okay, you may find yourself wandering a desert of uncertainty, no map, no direction, yet even here the ancient paths remain beneath your feet, right? To live is to be born every moment, okay? To die to the past in order to be alive now, right? The soul descends in order to rise. Everything is a mirror of everything. Everything is a mirror of everything. We will see on the spiritual path, there are times where we're in deep work, deep research. There's other times where we feel like we're being knocked down. There's other times where we feel like we're more involved with the world, right? It's this cycle, right? There's really no ending. This is how you can almost look at everything in your life, right? In our mind, we want to create this false sense of an ending, All right. I'm going down the spiritual path. I'm chasing enlightenment. I'll get there eventually, and I'm just going to keep researching. But there's no end. You're an infinitely expanding being, right? So the ups, the downs, it's the same. You're still going forward on this journey and getting closer to God, getting closer to union with the Most High, right? When you think of relationships, okay, there is this end, potential end that we envision, whether you think it's marriage, but it's much later than that. Right. Even when I tell you, when we talk about how we tend to view love, we don't view love with an end date. If you find someone that you love, you do not think of the end. You are ready to take on whatever happens after death with them. I will love you till infinity. I will love you through whatever comes after this. I will love you in every lifetime. Right? We go and we profess, or we in the vows, you might say until death does us part, but it's so much deeper than that. It's so much further than that. There is no end. So everything, right? You go through these ups and these downs, but it's still leading you to the same place. It's still leading you to this ever expanding space, right? So even the down part of the journey is moving forward, because it is in those obstacles, it's in the conflict that we build intimacy, that we build vulnerability. Everything's a reflection of everything. It's in the down moments, it's in the obstacles and relationships that you build more intimacy, more vulnerability, more communion. It is in those quote unquote down times in your life that you build more intimacy with yourself, more intimacy with God. We can see that the down moments, the quote unquote down moments, are times of intimacy. These are times of love, right? And there are lessons hidden in these moments that are just as profound, if not more, than when you are on the quote unquote upward trajectory. Every part of life is a blessing. We can look out at nature and see that nature goes through seasons as well. It's not always sunshine. It's not always rain. There's a time for blossoming, right? There's a time to plant the seeds. There's a time where these seeds are ruminating. These seeds are spreading their roots. It's a time where these seeds are sprouting. And then there's a time where you bear fruit, right? You take the fruit, and then there is a cycle of death and rest where everything sheds and dies and hibernates. And then we start the cycle over again. This is symbolic. This is metaphorical for your life. This is how your life runs, right? Your life, it's not as orderly, right? We can't predict it as well as we can predict nature, but you know that you're going to have seasons of death. You're going to have down seasons, seasons of rest, right? But these are all important. This is all part of the whole. It's all part of your ascension, right? When you are creating your business, what happens, right? First, you don't know what you're doing. And then you're doing work and you're getting traction. And then you have down seasons. You have down moments where you feel defeated, right? And you keep working through that. And it's just as much lessons, just as much learning in that moment as there is in the moment where you believe that you are just sowing all these seeds, right? This is life. Life in all aspects, from all perspectives, is a cycle of life and death. It's a beautiful, divine cycle of life and death. It's a dance, right? And so we have to be able to ride the wave through every season. Is this a down season? Right? Well, what is the lesson in this season? What is this season teaching you? Is this teaching you intimacy with yourself? Is your prosperity around the corner and it's about to hit, so now is the time to spend more time with your family? You said, when I get this prosperity, I'm going to do all these things for my family. You can be that person right now. You can enjoy them right now. All right? Do you enjoy the time with yourself right now before everything takes off? Okay? What is your perspective through the different seasons in your life? Through every single divine and important and beautiful and holy and sacred season in your life. Right? The season that you are sleeping in your car. The season where your car is repo, right? The season of loss. These are learning seasons. These are seasons of intimacy with yourself. These are seasons to build faith. Right? And it's often when we hit that bottom, one of the biggest lessons that we learn is surrender. One of the most important lessons that we can learn in life is how to surrender. Right? I've been trying to do this my way. I've been trying to control every single outcome, been trying to control everything. And at this moment, it's just not working out as I expected it to. So now I've quote unquote hit this rock bottom, and the only way to go is up. Why is the only way to go up? The only way to go is up because this is the time where you have to surrender and say, okay, thy will be done, right? Not mine, but thy will. It doesn't mean I strip my desires. My desires are still intact, right? It means my way of getting from point A to point Z has to evolve because I don't know everything, right? My plan hasn't been working. I don't know how to get there, right? And it is in this surrendering where it seems like things tend to take off. Things all of a sudden start to get better. We start to get on that upward trajectory. But this is an important cycle in itself. In that death and rebirth cycle, there are times where you're going to have to die to your ego. The situation is going to push you into killing your ego, into killing your sense of this is how it has to be, right? So in Kabbalah, this is the realm of Shevret HaKalim, all right? So the shattering of vessels. This is when the light becomes too great, and so the form must break. So too, the identity you built can no longer contain your soul. It must break, not as punishment, but as prophecy, okay? You have infinite consciousness within you, right? You have the Most High dwelling within you, living within you, pushing you at every moment, bringing everything that you need into your life to push you into who you need to be to get the things that you want. Therefore, nothing is accidental. Some of the lessons that you have to go through are lessons of breaking your ego. There are lessons, there are things that are going to teach you to release your ego, to release your control, your grip on life. Release your grip on how you think things should unfold. Release from your mind the limitations that you have. Man, I need all this money, but man, I don't think it can come this way. Right? Because I've been programmed to think that money can only flow this way. So you're going to sometimes go through seasons where you get these tough lessons that break you down like that. Right? One of the tougher lessons in relationships, I need somebody to complete me, to make me whole. Right? And so you get someone who shows you just enough to pull the love out of you, shows you just enough to make you feel differently about yourself, finally makes you feel sane, all right? And then they pull away. And what is the lesson in that? Someone just comes in and love bombs me, and they show me all these things that I've been fiending for, been longing for, and then they pull away. What is the purpose? God, why would you do that? Right? And you're going to have times where you question this. Right? Even Yahshua, even Jesus on the cross said, God, why have you forsaken me? On the cross he said that. Even the Israelites, when they were being freed from Egypt, said, man, God, we should have stayed back in slavery with Pharaoh. We seen that you did all these miracles, but this wilderness is tough. I can't predict shit out here. Right? And so we go through these seasons where people break us, but really they're just breaking you open. They're trying to show you things within yourself that you haven't given to yourself. Right? They're trying to push you to a point where you finally turn inward and you stop searching for intimacy outside of you. You stop searching for so much validation outside of you. Right? So what we talked about earlier. Right? How many times do we sit and we hope and we pray, man, I wish somebody could see me. I wish somebody would just hear me out. Man, I wish somebody would just sit in. Man, I wish somebody would actually just try to work things out with me. When's the last time that you tried to see yourself? Right? When is the last time that you acknowledged you for all the work that you've done? You want someone else to acknowledge you, but they don't know what you've been through like you know. You're the only one who has been in your mind 24/7. You've known the low points. You've known the times where you were alone and no one picked up the phone, crying on your bathroom, crying yourself to sleep, couldn't even sleep. Had to put on a straight face and go to work. Put on a straight face and go around your friends, go around your family, act like everything was okay. Then break down in the car. You were the one who did that by yourself. Have you acknowledged how strong you are to get through that? Have you acknowledged that it was just you? It was you and yourself that made it through that situation. So we want other people to acknowledge us, to see us, to validate us. But we haven't even done the work in validating ourselves most times. Right? This is important. This is important, loving work to do for yourself, because the one person who can truly validate you, whose validation means the most, is you. You think you're searching for completion from other people, but you're not. Your soul is craving intimacy with yourself. It's craving intimacy with the God within you. That is what that desire for intimacy is that desire for intimacy with yourself. And when we go out and we're trying to get other people to fill that void within us, they can't. Because that doesn't even abide by universal law, as within, so without. If I have a void within myself, it has to match externally. So someone has to come into my life to show me that void more clearly. And when they show me that void more clearly, now I'm pushed on another journey to get by myself, to be by myself, to get myself intimacy. Right? These are the cycles that you go through. This is the learning cycles that you go through on this journey of life. Right? So everything is teaching you this lesson. You are going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And a lot of times those down moments are going to make you appreciate the up moments more. Right? Especially in relationships, right? How many people do you know actually make wise choices with their relationships the first time? Right? How many of us pick the right person the first time? No, it wasn't a rhetorical question. How many of y'all picked the right person the first damn time? Right? Not many, if any, right? Very, very few. Okay? So we tend to go through these lessons over and over again, right? Until we start to learn, until we start to actually do better, right? But you're going to have seasons in relationships. You're going to have seasons in life. Okay? So the seasons that you have, it's like the large, the macro, all right? The micro is going to be a reflection of the macro. The macro is going to be a reflection of the micro. Life is fractal. If there's anything that y'all really just pick up from me, right? Once you start looking at one aspect of your life like everything, you'll start to make these comparisons to everything in your life, right? The seasons that you have within a relationship are really the same as the seasons you have outside of a relationship throughout your whole life, right? So when you're in relationships, you have these ups and downs just like you do throughout your life. You have these honeymoon phases, this phase of extreme love. You have seasons where it's difficult to connect, where you have to put in a lot of work. You have seasons where you are the one giving a little bit more effort. You have seasons where they're the one giving a little bit more effort because you have other things going on, right? There's always this cyclical nature. There's going to be seasons where y'all need to be learning each other more, where you might not feel like that spark is there and y'all have to pour more love into each other to get back into, the sight or the knowing, the inner knowing that you're in this divine relationship. Right? The same with your life. You're going to have times in life that feel high. Other times where you feel like, man, I've been putting all this work in, but I don't feel like life's really giving me back what I deserve. It's going to be other times where you have to really sit by yourself. Right? You feel like you're alone. Right? And this is building your trust and your intimacy and all these things, right, with yourself. Right? Then you have times where you're going to reap the benefits because we've been doing all this work and we have been going through these obstacles together. And we have been using them as opportunities to grow more in intimacy. Well, right now we are reaping the benefits, a couple months later, because, all right, now we got some time. We can get away from the kids. We can get away from the day-to-day. We can go on a vacation. We can, enjoy ourselves, rekindle our flame. We can make sure that everything is going well, right? But you're going to have seasons. Nothing is ever a single upward trajectory. There's always this cycle. There's always a cycle of putting in a lot of energy, not seeing a lot of outcomes. There's always a season of reaping the benefits, okay? There seem to be seasons of death, right? Things are off, okay? Instead of experiencing the death or the loss of your business by yourself, maybe you're experiencing it with the partner this time, right? You have somebody that's actually standing with you in the fire of losing a parent, of losing a close relative, okay? And now y'all are experiencing that together. But there's all kinds of seasons that we go through in life, right? But those down seasons really allow you to truly appreciate those upward seasons even more, okay? So next is going to be the alchemy of the in-between, the in-between, the unknown, which I always refer to as the soul expanding space. The unknown is the consciousness expanding space, the soul expanding space, okay? What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. What hurts you blesses you, okay? Darkness is your candle. You use this darkness as your candle, and you are the flame, right? And you continue to work, you continue to build that intimacy with yourself, okay? Until the light within you illuminates the darkness and you can walk through it, all right? This is the sacred burning, okay? Where old identities are consumed and you are asked to surrender not just what you do, but who you think you are. Anytime we go through a process of death, losing a business, losing a relationship, losing a relative, hell, losing a pet, right? You're going to go through this experience, right? Who do you think you are? You have imagined your life with this person. I see the rest of my life with this person, with this woman. Or ladies, you see the rest of your life with this man, and now it is over with. There is a version of you still attached to you, right? That is mourning. You're mourning that version of you that saw the rest of your life with this person. This is a symbolic death. You have to kill this version of you, right? The job that fired you, that laid you off, right? If you voluntarily are trying to go to a new job, right? This is a version of you that thought you were going to be there longer, right? You have to surrender who you think you are. Who did you thought you were somebody. You had an identity wrapped up with that person. Who are you when that person leaves? You're going to have to rethink your goals, your plans. The goals you had, plans you had for 5 months, 5 weeks, 5 days change. The goals you had for 5 years, 5 decades, these change as well. So it is this invitation to reintroduce yourself to you. This is why it's so unhealthy to just jump from person to person. You need time to mourn the death of yourself. You are losing that person, yes. And this is a metaphorical death as well, because even though they're still alive, your body is confused. Your mind is confused. You mean to tell me we had everything planned together and I'll just never speak to this person again? Are they gone? Your body is in a very confused state. Give yourself time to mourn that old version of you. Allow yourself to mourn it. Talk to yourself, right? Write a letter to that old version of you, thanking them for the experience, thanking them for going through life with you this far. And you are going to make them proud by the person that you are going to become. Right? Give them the validation that you want someone else to give you. The same way that you want somebody to hold you to sleep at night, hold yourself to sleep. All right? This is a calling to yourself. This is a calling to remind yourself who you are. Okay? So it is here that mystics speak of the Negretto stage in alchemy. Okay? The Negretto, or the blackening. All right, so the decomposition of the false self. Really, this is similar to the dark night of the soul. I actually have it written here, so I'll just read it. Right, this concept is very similar to the dark night of the soul. All right, so you may lose lovers, lose wealth, lose titles, but the soul is gaining something far more precious: authenticity. All right, so Negretto, in alchemical tradition, this represents the first stage of the magnum opus, the great work of spiritual and psychological transformation, also called the blackening. Okay, Negretto symbolizes death, decay, and the dissolution of the ego. It is necessary breaking down of old structures, beliefs, identities, and attachments that no longer serve the soul's evolution. Just as compost must rot before it can nourish new life, the soul must descend into darkness to shed illusions and confront its shadow. Okay? In this stage, confusion, grief, or crisis may arise, but these are not punishments, they are purifications. On a mystical level, Negretto is not just destruction, it is a sacred invitation. So Carl Jung saw it as the moment when the unconscious begins to emerge, forcing us to reckon with repressed truths. All right, so you go through this situation, and some of those subconscious beliefs that maybe that you've pushed down over time, they begin to emerge so you can actually confront them. It is the soul's dark night when all external lights dim, pushing us inward. Okay? So we just heard this other quote from Rumi, right? What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Darkness makes you, when you are surrounded by the darkness, you have to work on cultivating your own inner light, your own authenticity, to allow you to see out of the darkness, to illuminate the way. You have to surrender to the God within you, to the authenticity within you, to actually get out of these situations. Right? You have to surrender. You have to detach from how you think things were supposed to be. All right. This stage humbles us, but also cracks open the seed of authenticity. True gold, the philosopher's stone, cannot be created until the false gold is burned away. All right. So Negretto is the womb of rebirth disguised as a tomb. To endure it is to surrender to transformation's fiercest grace. All right. This stage humbles us, okay? It is the soul's dark night when all external lights dim that pushes us inward. This is when we get the most inner work done, right? When we are in the darkness, when we are that seed and we are planted in adversity. I just lost a job. I just lost the woman of my dreams. I just lost whatever. Now you are planted. Right? And that darkness forces you to go inward. When you cannot see outside, when there's no distractions, you are forced to go inwards. Right? Very beautiful. So the Philosopher's Stone, all right? The Philosopher's Stone is the legendary substance in alchemy said to transform base metals into gold and grant immortality. Okay, but on a deeper esoteric level, it symbolizes the ultimate goal of spiritual transformation, the awakening of divine consciousness within the self. It is not a literal stone, but a metaphor for inner alchemy. Okay, so the process of transmuting the lead of the ego into the gold of the soul. The lead of the ego into the gold of the soul. In other words, right, it's a little bit of mystical shit right here. But in other words, this is alchemizing the quote unquote negative situations that you are in your life and turning them into beauty, into divinity, right? Turning them into enlightenment, turning them into surrender, turning them into prosperity, okay? So achieving the Philosopher's Stone means attaining wholeness, union with the divine, and mastery over one's inner nature. It is the sacred marriage of opposites, masculine and feminine, light and shadow, matter and spirit within the self, negative and positive, all these things, right? Culminating in a radiant state of enlightened being. The mystic, the person, the individual, the soul on the path of enlightenment understands that you die over and over. I mean, I am prepared to die because I have died several times already. I have experienced death so many times throughout my life. You have experienced death already so many times. The version of you that thought you were going to be with those last 3 people for the rest of your life, they've died, right? That version of you has passed away. The version of you that thought that first business was going to be the one, that version of you has passed away, right? The version of you who thought your mother would be there forever, that version of you has passed away, right? You have died over and over and over again. And each time it has pushed you into a deeper understanding of you. It has stripped away a part of your ego. It has put this darkness around you, and that darkness has forced you to go inward. It has forced you to be the illumination, to be the light on your path. Right? And we will go through this over and over again through this lifetime until we pass. We will go through it with other people. You will go through it as a partnership. In your relationships, y'all will have these cycles together. And then you will pass away and you will come back and you will do it all over again. Over and over and over again. Because where else would you rather be? Right? So Job 13:15, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Good old Job, right? Job is one of the incredible stories, incredible metaphysical stories of the dark night of the soul. When we think about Job, right? Job had it, right? Job had it. And his test was, anybody can praise the Most High when everything's going well, but how are you going to act when things don't look well? Right? We can all have faith. We can all praise. We can all jump for joy and be glad and show up in life when everything seems to be going well. But what about when you have nothing? What about when you are sitting in your bathroom floor, heartbroken, right? What about when you are in your car and you're waiting to go into the crib? You don't know how you're going to pay the bills. And you are sitting there reflecting on how you got to this point in your life, right? Very difficult to have faith in these situations. But these are the situations that mold us, that push us into a greater inner knowing of ourselves. All right? Yeah, Job is a very relatable story to me as well, for sure, right? So this is not destruction. This is holy fire. It purifies, it sears the ego, and from its ashes, a deeper you begins to form. Right? From its ashes, a deeper you begins to form. All right, so number 3, the waters, baptism into mystery. All right, I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly because you tread on my dreams. All right, after the fire comes the flood. After the fire comes the flood. What does that mean? The fire in life, the heartbreak, the job loss. Right? After this fire comes the flood, the tears, the release, the great unraveling, the time where you are called to give intimacy to yourself. I have just walked through the fire of this painful situation. A version of me has just been sacrificed. The metaphor of the phoenix, this bird that creates its nest, it sets it on fire. It goes in the nest. It sets itself on fire, kills itself because it knows it will be reborn as this majestic phoenix, this majestic bird, right? So you go through this fire in your life anytime that you have a spiritual death, losing a job, spiritual death, losing a relationship, going broke, spiritual death, right? It does not work out as planned, spiritual death. After the fire, that fire, because your soul literally has set this fire for you, for your own expansion, for your greatest good. Your soul has set this fire. and you have willy-nilly walked into it. You've walked into it. And now, boom, your life is ablaze. And now comes the cleansing. It comes the great flood, the tears. Right? Giving yourself that grace. Looking yourself in the mirror. We're going to get through this. I'm with you. The release, that divine feminine energy flows through you. Right? I'm not talking about it from a male woman perspective. I'm talking about that divine feminine energy that flows through you. This is not weakness. This is initiation. All right. This is common for the man and the woman. Right. You have that release that flows through you. That energy that flows through you. OK, so in the mystery traditions, this is the sacred feminine washing over you. The river that cleanses. The womb that rebirths. Okay, the womb that rebirths. Let's listen to all these metaphors, right? You have the phoenix, right? You have the fire of life. These situations are fire. You have the great cleansing, the spiritual cleanse. We even say it ourselves, man. Sometimes you just gotta cry. It feels good to get it up out you. It's spiritual. That release is spiritual. Okay, and now when you are in there, it is as if you are in the womb. Right? That feminine energy washes over you. So metaphorically, you are in the womb of your life. You have just died. You have just walked into the fire. And now you are cleansing that old part of you. You're washing out all the part that was burnt. That old version of you that was attached to that relationship, attached to that job, burnt it out. You washed it out. And now you were in that womb waiting to be reborn as a new, more expanded, more conscious version of yourself. Right? A more divine, a more authentic, a colder version of you. You feel me? More in alignment, higher vibration, right? More magnetic. You feel me? All these things. You are walking out of the womb, right? No matter how long you have to be in them. Right? We can even metaphorically say 9 months. The child doesn't just pop up in there and boom, the next day it comes out, right? It's in their womb for a while. It's being developed. So the same way that you are developed in the womb, we can think about this from the perspective of the seed that I gave earlier. From being inside of this metaphorical womb, you are planted in darkness. You go through this very spiritual rebirth. Yet instead of us understanding that a seed has to be underground for a certain time, you've went through the pain. You've walked through this fire. And now you are buried as this seed. You are in the womb, in your rebirth. But instead of staying in that rebirth, you want to jump out and get underneath somebody else. You want to go inside of another woman like that. You haven't even birthed a new version of you. Don't you want to integrate this lesson and step out as a more divine version of yourself? So we take this time to give ourselves grace. We take this time to do inner work. All right? We take this time to really cultivate this new sense of us. If God is within everybody, what was God trying to tell me through this person? What is my soul trying to teach me through this situation? Now I integrate this and I show up. I'm rebirthed into the world. It's a beautiful person. It's a more beautiful person. And now I'm attracting new experiences. People are looking at me like, boy, you done changed. I know. I had to. My soul called me back to myself. Right? You are the phoenix. All of these things are metaphors for you. And the cold thing about the Most High, right, is he gives us all of these things to look at. Symbolism. The seed. Talks about the seed all the time through scripture. Right? We can go through whatever. We can go through Greek history. We can go through mythology. We can look through African spirituality. You're always going to see these cycles of death and rebirth. This is you. And you go through this over and over again. The seasons in nature, this represents you. The universe is within you. Everything outside of you is within you. And it's all showing you your divinity. You are nature. This is why you go through the cycles of nature. You are the divine masculine and the divine feminine. This is why you experience these cycles of death and rebirth. You are the phoenix. All of these mythological stories, they're all you, because everything is within you. The universe is you. Everything is within you. The universe is you. The Bible is you. Mythology is you. It's all you, right? So relationships, once filled with codependency, now dissolve into sacred detachment. Careers, once driven by validation, are surrendered to purpose. You are being baptized, not in water alone, but in wisdom. Revelation 21:5, behold, I make all things new. Behold, you are new, right? The resurrection blossoming from the bone. Pablo Picasso, okay? Every act of creation is first an act of destruction. Every act of creation is first an act of destruction. Let's look at this throughout history. Let's look at the first thing. We were like, how was the universe created? Scientists will say, oh, the Big Bang. Chaos, destruction, an explosion that formed into all of this. Incredible. Let's think about your birth. Chaos, an explosion. Right? You might not want to think about this too hard, but your mother and father laying down together, there was chaos. There was an explosion of your father within your mother. And it organized into the art that is you, into the divine vehicle that is you. All right? Every act of creation is first an act of destruction. Who would you be today if it was not for all of the situations that you had to endure throughout your life? Are you as divine? Are you as wise? No, I'm not as wise if I didn't have to sleep in the car. I'm not as wise if I wasn't homeless. I'm not as wise if I lose a woman I thought was going to be my wife. I'm not as wise. I'm not who I am, right? So if I love myself, if I appreciate myself, if I understand the cycles of life, how can I look at anything with hatred that made me who I am? How could you? These are all part of your death and rebirth cycles. This is all part of your divinity. Right? We cannot detach. You cannot detach your pain from your triumph. You cannot detach your test from your testimony. It is all the same. Right? This goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Everything is multidimensional. We think that there's an end to our spiritual ascent, but there's not. You're infinitely expanding. So you're here right now, and let's say infinity is here. You think that you're going up and down, but you're always going towards the end goal. Always. No matter what the cycle is in life, you're always moving forward. You can judge it through your human perception and say, okay, sometimes I'm getting worse. Sometimes I get it. No. You're always moving. You're always expanding. Always. Every single moment you are expanding. Right? So these cycles in your life, these deaths, these rebirths, it's all expansion. And it's all leading you to wherever you're headed. And you can never get there because you are an infinitely expanding being. Just like the universe. The universe is within you. It's infinitely expanding. And so are you. How divine are you? How divine are you? All right? So, what was taken has made space. Let me go back a second, actually. You rise now not as you once were, but as who you truly are. What was taken has made space. What was lost has taught value. What was broken has revealed the indestructible. Like Christ from the tomb, metaphor. Christ from the tomb, metaphor. Like Osiris reborn, metaphor. Like the phoenix crowned in smoke, metaphor. You ascend. And with this new soul skin, your relationships deepen into divine unions. Your career aligns with your soul contract. Your love ceases to perform and begins to transform. You come into that authenticity, but it is only through this learning, through this constant process of death, of rebirth, of pain, of joy, of all these fleeting emotions and feeling fleeting circumstances, that we expand and we grow into the person that can step into divine union. You were not equipped for divine union at the age of 16. You had to grow into it, right? Your career aligns with your soul contract. Did you know your soul's contract at 16? Things have pushed you into a greater understanding of who you are. We judge it as negative, but it is always positive. Always. Always positive. Everything is for you. Nothing is against you. Okay? So Jeremiah 29:11. All right, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. Listen to that one more time. This is what the Most High says to you, okay? This is what the God within you speaks to you. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. The desires that you have in your mind, those holy, sacred desires, like I always say, right? Some people wanted to be doctors, some didn't. Some want to be lawyers, some didn't. Some want to be engineers, some didn't. You have the desires in your mind, some don't. Some want to be millionaires. Some want to be alone in the farm. You have holy desires within you that burn within you. For I know the plans I have for you. These are the plans that the Most High is speaking about right here. Your desires. I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Nothing is harming you. No circumstance that you're in is truly meant to harm you. It is meant to expand you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. Unless you believe the Lord is full of shit. It's accidental. Everything is for you. It doesn't matter what it looks like. The situation might not look ideal, but the God within me is perfect. So the situation must be perfect. So the situation must be perfect. Right? Fuck, I don't care what the situation looks like. The situation is ideal because the God within me is perfect. The situation is perfect. Okay? The flight, living as one who has died. So tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Okay? The mystical initiate does not fear death. They have lived it 1,000 times in heartbreak and loss and letting go. And each time they return truer, fuller, freer, more divine, more conscious, higher vibration, wiser. Every single time you come out the other side better. You can handle whatever life throws at you. You can handle whatever life throws at you. And you can come out the other side a more divine being. Okay? You will love again, but not from emptiness. You will work again, but not for survival. You will speak again, but from the silence beyond sound. I'm going to read that one more time because I want y'all to feel that. I want y'all to really feel that because I felt that when I was saying it. You will love again. No matter how much your heart has been broken, how badly, how deeply you believe your heart has been broken, you will love again, but not from emptiness, from wholeness, from the divinity, from the divine that you are. You will work again, but not for survival. You ain't gonna work for chips and dip, right? You're gonna work for the whole thing, the whole enchilada, right? For the prosperity that belongs to you, that is promised to you, that the Most High has placed in your mind. That sacred desire, that sacred promise. Your desires are promise. Your desires are promise from the Most High. How good does that feel to know? My desire, the things that I want, this is God wanting it for me. This is a promise. All I have to do is walk the path. Right? And I will work again, but not for survival, just for straight prosperity, okay? You will speak again, but from the silence beyond sound. I will speak again with more wisdom because I am more wise. All right? Because I am more wise from overflow. From overflow. You are not who you were. You are not who you were, and that is your liberation. You're not who you were anymore, and that is your liberation. All right? So the eternal return, okay? To die before you die is to taste eternity while still in the flesh. To die before you die is to taste eternity while still in the flesh, right? To be able to die and tap back in, to be surrounded by the darkness of the death. I have lost a loved one. I've lost, you know what I'm saying, this relationship, this job. I've lost whatever. I'm on my last dollar right now. I've lost my home. I've lost everything. I am in the darkness. And this is where you are reintroduced to the God within you. You have no choice but to surrender. You have no choice but to let that inner light illuminate the path. It is only in the darkness that you can be reintroduced to your light. Rarely do people wake up when things are going well. Rarely does someone on top decide, I'm going to change. I'm going to surrender and I'm going to change. When do we do that? When shit seems to be falling apart. This is when we typically do that, right? This is when we typically do that, okay? So let the cycle turn. Let death come when it must. Let death come whenever. If I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, right? If the Most High is with me, my soul is with me, the divine is with me, it's all for me, right? So let death come when it must, in love, in work, in self. Welcome it as the sacred guest. For what dies is illusion, and what is born is you. Right? Matthew 10:39. He who loses his life for my sake shall find it. Man, that felt like a mic drop verse right there. He who loses his life for my sake shall find it. God damn, I love that verse, right? We tend to think that means like, forget it. You can have your own beliefs, right? All I'm going to say is this. I read the Bible from a very metaphorical perspective, all right? He who loses his life for my sake shall find it. When you lose your life, we've been talking about this metaphorical death, this ego death that you have to experience, right? You have went through a heartbreak. You have lost an opportunity. There's a version of you that was attached to that opportunity, to that relationship. You saw the rest of your life with that person, and that version of you has now died. Right? That situation is gone. Right? And so this is just like that phoenix. Your soul has set up this relationship for you because it knew the outcome. It knew what you needed. This person could not be your divine counterpart. They were a lesson. So this lesson comes, and that old version of you is tossed in the fire. Right? And after that fire, it comes that flood, right? The tears, right? That great purging of yourself, right? And it is in this time that you are in this metaphysical, this spiritual, this metaphorical womb, being rebirthed, being reintroduced to yourself, right? And so when you lose your life for my sake, right? He who loses his life for my sake shall find it. When you kill that old version of you and you surrender to the flow of the divine, when you surrender to the flow of your soul, when you hold on to your desire and you begin to surrender how you believe you're supposed to get there. This is always a very interesting conversation that I have with clients, right? Because I try to naturally lead you to the path of surrender, right? Especially when you're more spiritually inclined. Because what we tend to think is, oh shit, I do have ultimate control of my life. And so instead of us thinking from the end of what we actually want, we think of the end of how to get there. Meaning, You might have a big dream to do something, right? Whether it's open up, a studio or put on a show later on down. And instead of you envisioning that, what you want to do is you want to envision the small breadcrumbs on the way there. Well, in order to get there, I'm going to need to get this dollar amount from this specific person, this specific opportunity. I'm going to get this donation from them. And so I'm going to completely focus and try to manifest that. Hold up now. Right? You have to die to your plans. The end result is going to come. The Most High knows what you need. Your soul understands the process, what you need to get there way better than you do. Right? So you trying to just focus on the middle, you're sabotaging your process. You're sabotaging the divine flow. You're not consciously doing it, but what you're actually doing is you're saying it has to work this way. So if I try to make it work, but the Most High had a better plan for me, now I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh shit, well, is God really on my side? Is everything really working out for me? Yeah, it is. Just in a better way than you expected. Right? We have to make sure that what we are asking for is truly what we want. Right? Is what you want for one step on the way to getting what you want, is that your end goal? Or is your end goal actually getting what you want in the most divine way? Well, you have to think bigger. We have to constantly be forcing and challenging ourselves to expand our mind, to expand our thought process. Right? I'm focused on the end result. How I get there, thy will be done. Not mine, thy will. I already know that your will is getting me this desire because you place it in my mind. But how it unfolds, I could care less. I'm just going to step into every next opportunity knowing that that next opportunity is pregnant with the next opportunity. All I have to do is do my best. Every moment is pregnant with the next blessing. Every single moment. And just by you stepping in the next moment and penetrating the next moment, right? You are then allowing the next moment to be pregnant with the next moment. So you're really just stepping next moment to next moment with faith, understanding that it's all unfolding, holding on to the end result. The middle, it does not matter. Scramble it up. Right? It can come in whatever order, whatever way. It can look chaotic. But this is really just everything collapsing to get you to where you want in a divine way, in a way that's more fun. Right? It's always better than you expect. The worst case scenario that you can imagine, life always ends up better than that. The best case scenario, once you get there, life actually always ends up better than that, right? So the Most High is not a God that works in, the God within you does not operate in less than. It's always greater than. Always, right? So at what point do we start surrendering the path? Allowing the path to unfold? Right? Actually taking the divine for his word, right? This is the Most High. This is the creator of everything that lives within you. Surely they can make a little bit of prosperity for you happen. Right? So these cycles that we have, this constant death that we have is always going to be a reintroduction to ourself. Always. Okay? And so the more prepared we are, the more able and willing we are to step into these cycles with love and invite them. Right? I invite the chaos. Right? I invite these cycles because I know they're all for me. I know I'm not going to have anything placed on me more than I can bear. And the quicker I learn these lessons, the quicker I step into more blessings. Right? So bring them on. And there's typically fun that's involved with these lessons as well. Right? You might not want to admit it when you're deep in the pain, right? But even that person that broke your heart, right? There's good memories there. It was fun there. So not all the lesson was terrible. Some of the lesson was beautiful. Right? All the lesson really was beautiful. Okay, it's just your perspective. What do you focus on? Okay. So I'm gonna end this one there. Right. But this one, of course, it's all on YouTube. I'll never take them down. The YouTube link is gonna be in the bio. But Sure, we got time, man. So if y'all have any questions, anything that y'all want me to talk about anything, we can talk more about a specific topic here. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about spiritual shit. We can talk about whatever. If there's no questions, I'll end it with a prayer. But also, if y'all want any kind of coaching, there's a Calendly link in the bio. In my social media bio, it's in the link tree. You can always pop up there. And we can talk about whatever in counseling as well. We talk about everything from finances to your spiritual walk, to your relationships, to masculinity, to femininity, all that stuff. All that stuff. Oh, we got the puzzle piece. I want to talk about everything. What is everything? What is everything? Give me a little head start, man. Throw me a topic. A long time ago. I did a long time ago. Now I just quote from it. Just like the Bible, right? I used to read the Bible a long time ago, and now I just quote from it. But yeah, I've read it before. That's a good one. That's a really great one. How to tell the difference between discernment and overthinking/anxiety. To talk about this, we're going to have to talk about chakra alignment. I'm going to have to hit this from multiple perspectives. All right. So when we hear overthinking, right, I always struggle with defining overthinking because it's such a gaslighting term. I've never heard anyone say overthinking for a positive reason. I just love the way that you overthink. It's always like, yeah, I know that you're saying 2 + 2 is 4, but I'm going to tell you it's 3 and say that you're really overthinking, right? So that's always an interesting thing. So number one, I think it's important that we choose people that we respect and that we're in alignment with morally. Now, the next part of this. I don't know if I really ever have agreed with the term overthinking because we just think to what we believe is necessary and right. All right. Now, if I am thinking a certain way, if my thoughts have been pulled a certain way because of situations that I've underwent in the past, that is one thing. But if I am in touch with my intuition, with my discernment, this is more of a soft voice from the Most High, right? This is more of a soft voice, a soft feeling, a loving but stern feeling within you, right? But your discernment also might just be leading you away from negative choices. But if you're ever at the point where you feel like, okay, I'm sitting here and I think something's going wrong and I'm just burning hot, right? I'm just burning hot. You might be way past discernment, right? You might be way past discernment at that point. But here's the problem. All right, so let's talk about intuition and discernment from a spiritual perspective. All of this is associated with the solar plexus. All right, so your solar plexus is your gut. That's why we say that you have a gut feeling, right? If you have your intuition is really in line with gut feelings. You might have a gut feeling about something. Now, another thing we have to also remember when we talk about our solar plexus or our gut is that there's a major attack on your intuition and on your solar plexus directly through food. The number one way to close down this energy center is to eat a lot of processed food, a lot of food with chemicals, not fast, not work out, right? Because then your body actually stores information and it stores emotion within it. And when you have ever been through a tough situation, romantically or whatever, if you really do a lot of inner work, you'll realize that your body can actually react quicker than your mind. So you could be driving and you're triggered by something, you don't even know what it is, right? Because it might be a trigger you're not conscious to, and automatically you can just feel sad in your body. And then your brain will start making up stories that attach to that emotion, that match that emotion, right? So your body can store energy. Your body can store information and emotions. Why this is a problem is that if you've been through a lot of situations in the past with a quote unquote negative person, or you've been in negative experiences, you've experienced trauma as a child, right? Your body can store information. And so now your body can react before your mind can react. And so what can happen to a lot of people is they're in situations they're not conscious yet about how they've been hurt a certain way in the past, about some triggers, right? Maybe subconsciously, the ex that you were talking to when they lied to you, when you found out they were lying, they were eating with a fork. This is a silly example, but this is how cold your brain is, right? They were eating with a fork. And now anytime somebody else is eating, somebody that you're romantically involved with is eating with a fork, it triggers you. Now you might think, Alex, bro, that's a far-fetched thing to say. Is it? Because they have done studies where they will have someone walk down the street in a crowded environment. And then they will sit them down and they will question them and say, okay, name all the details of everybody you saw on the street. And people will struggle. I don't know. Shit, maybe the mannequin in that window was wearing a yellow shirt. Maybe this person in front of me had blue shoes on, right? So they're trying their best to recall it. They can't remember. But then guess what? They put them under hypnosis. And what happens? All of a sudden, they remember everything. Your brain remembers everything. So they could tell you what the mannequin looks like. They could count the amount of people that were on the street. This is how powerful your brain is, how much information your brain is taking in. You just see the world and remember through filters. Because most of the time, what do we remember the most? Things that strong emotion. If it was a strong emotion, we remember things. So you've went through a traumatic situation. And because of that, your brain has all these snapshots of what happened. And that energy, that emotion is stored in your body. So now you can be triggered by all kinds of things you're not conscious of, right? So if you're not actually, it's not even about finding all the triggers. That's impossible and that's fruitless. Why would you even need to do that? What's important is understanding, all right, I know if I have a trigger, it's going to lead to a certain feeling in my body or a certain thought loop. How do I start breaking those thought loops? All right. So this is why, like, if your solar plexus is off, what burning fat and exercising does is it actually allows your body to burn through old programming and trauma. So it helps you when you're getting over breakups, when you're trying to kind of fix some of these emotional blocks within you, I guess we can call them, right? But if you're eating processed food, if you're not working out, right? If you're not, in the sun, if you're not keeping your body hot, at least trying to be more conscious of what you eat, where you are going to struggle with burning through programming. This is why the food is so tainted that they give you. This is why everybody should be fasting at least once in a while to get your body back into homeostasis, to give your body a jump start in burning fat. You want to carry as few fat as possible, as little fat as possible, right? Because fat stores trauma as well. Okay, so that's number one, right? So we have to balance our solar plexus, and we also have to understand what are some of the triggers that we're going to experience, right? How do I remember going through pain, especially with women, right? And it would always be a pain in my side first. The first thing I would feel is pain in my side, and then the thoughts would start. But if I catch that, now I can just say, well, it's just a pain in my side. I don't need to start thinking all kinds of crazy because of that. And so now I'm able to break that pattern. I'm able to break that connection, right? So just because I have a pain in my side doesn't mean I have to go down this loop, all right? And so once we get past that point, now we have to tune into our intuition. Now, how do we tap more into our intuition and discernment? Well, we're going to need to do more spiritual tasks. We're going to need to meditate more, right? We're going to have to understand how your soul tries to speak to you. Does your soul try to speak to you through books, right? Through maybe you're thinking about something and you get the answer in a song lyric, right? Because your soul, the Most High, the Divine, speaks to everybody differently. He showed up to Moses as a burning bush, showed up to Job as a storm, I believe, or a thunderstorm or a hurricane or something, a tornado, right? So you can be spoken to in all these different ways. Do you understand how your soul, how the Most High speaks to you? Could you recognize that voice? Do you know the difference between your intuition and your own internal voice? You can only discern this. You can only understand this by really spending time with yourself, right? I don't believe it's really something that, you just wake up one day and it's like, I'm going to tap into my intuition now and then, boom, right? All of a sudden, everything's clear. That voice gets stronger and stronger over time, the same way that when people, ignore their conscience over time, when people ignore that internal guidance system over time, it gets weaker and weaker. They can just overcome it so much easier. They can just zoom through it, right? So we just have to understand those types of things. But, how do you also differentiate yourself, right? Because you have inherent wisdom within you. You can sit back in a situation, and if you are truly honest with yourself and you try to detach from your stronger emotions in a situation, you can tell when, all right, I might be making up a story, or no, I don't need to be here. And now I'm actually just trying to cover up the fact that I know what to do by saying maybe I'm just overthinking. If you and this is the big part of intuition, right? Is getting to a point where we actually trust ourselves. The relationship was over long before you had to go through their phone. The situation was done way before it got to that point. You knew it was done way before you got to that point, right? But you didn't trust yourself. Right? And this happens to a lot of us. And I use relationships because it's just, one of the more common things that we all go through. But I mean, we know that shit was over long before you snatched their phone up. Long before they were in the shower and their phone was there and you were like, one scroll wouldn't hurt. That shit was over long before that. Right? So how do you get back in touch with your intuition? Yeah, definitely clean up the diet, work out more, right? But also put yourself in position. Start trusting your intuition all the time. Start trying to tap into your intuition in every decision, not when it's just the biggest decisions, but little decisions. What time should I leave for work tomorrow? What should I, how should I respond to this person? When should I call my parents? Right? What should I be eating right now? Should I have a cheat meal? Right? Start tapping into your intuition in little things, so you can actually start trusting yourself in the larger things, right? Because we don't practice this and we step onto the big stage, you're gonna find yourself going through some phones because you're not listening to your intuition. But also we'll find ourselves running off good situations because we're mistaking old patterns that we've went through with other people. We're mistaking them for our intuition when really, this person had nothing to do with the last situation. We're just reacting because our subconscious mind stores so much information and we haven't sat long enough in the womb that we were talking about, in that cycle of rebirth, to actually be like, all right, let's start to heal. Let's start to do a little bit more work and get right. I appreciate that question, man. Hopefully Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a very straightforward answer, but we can take steps to strengthen it. And the number one things that I recommend, of course, is diet, it's working out, but then it's also just doing work, being extremely conscious of your body, because your body stores information. Your body gives you signals. Where in your body do you start to feel things before you know? We're talking, right? If you feel uncomfortable with somebody, do you feel it in your body? Where? How? When you feel comfortable with somebody, do you feel it in your body? When you feel comfortable with a decision or uncomfortable with a decision, where do you feel it in your body? Right? And what thoughts are starting to be associated with certain feelings in your body? And then how can you start to strengthen that muscle, that intuitive muscle, that discernment, right? And then you can also look through your past and look at situations and be like, all right, now that I'm removed from these situations emotionally, was my intuition on or off? Sometimes studying the past can give you a better gauge. It can give you more confidence and trust in yourself. It's just going back and be like, okay, I was right. Or okay, I was wrong in this situation, but I see why I was wrong, right? We make our life this project, which it is. It's the greatest project you're ever gonna have to do or you'll ever be part of. Right? So you can always do stuff like that. I appreciate you. What else y'all got, man? What other questions y'all got? Okay, everybody quiet now, okay. Okay. I'll give y'all about 15 more seconds. Yeah, for sure. It's already up there. So as I'm going live, they're already on YouTube. Like this one's already, even this one, I'm recording it on YouTube as well. So once I hit end, it's already up though. Everything is up there. We don't edit it. We don't take it down. Unless something crazy happen, then I might take it down. But I haven't had anything happen yet. So no problem. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. I know I said 15 seconds. I give you 10 more. Y'all got anything y'all want to talk about? Any questions? Talk about anything, relationships, spirituality, whatever. Bro, my other phone up. How do we cope with death? How do I personally cope with death? Ooh. Personally, I cope with death very slowly. And all right, let me get slightly vulnerable. All right, so the veil between my dreams and reality is very thin. So I dream vividly. I have dreams within dreams. I lucid dream a lot. But oftentimes there's a lot of times where I'll forget what was a dream and what was reality. And So I've experienced close people dying to me, very, very close. And the solace or the, all right, so the biggest lesson that I learned through those situations is death has allowed me to understand how reality works. We understand that on an atom level, right, we can only see 0.1% of matter. Atoms, 0.1% of matter, the rest of it is energy and information. Okay, now, what that truly means is that only 1%, less than 1% of you is actually here in this physical realm. The rest of you is still in union with God. The rest of you is spiritual. All right, so what happens after death is you pass, and all of a sudden, all of the information that you've accumulated through this life is quote unquote uploaded to your higher self. Your higher self makes up the 99.9999% of you. All right. Now, I'm going to say how I cope with death, but I'm going to go on a little metaphysical lesson first. All right. So your higher self makes up 99.99999% of you. Now, we tend to think that our higher self is this all-knowing being that is sitting above us and is just looking down. What your higher self truly is this is an accumulation of every single past life that you've had. Every single life you've had, every single experience, every single perspective, every single possibility that you could imagine, that you could have, this is your higher self. So this is most of you. All right? And your higher self can kind of dictate how to guide you through this life based on its infinite knowledge. Your higher self is in union with the Most High. Now, the moment that you pass, you basically, in an imperceivable time to us, are reborn. So this consciousness, the information that I've gathered, who I am right now is, let's say, uploaded to my higher self, right? But this part of me, who I am in this incarnation, will still be accessible to every single person that knows me in this life, right? And that part of me is going to be accessible forever, right? So if you have a wife that passes, a parent that passes, this is why, yes, they're in another incarnation, but you can still dream about them. They can still help you. They can still guide you through life. All right? Even though they're somewhere doing another life right now, who they were to you, this version of them, the version of them that you had right now, is still alive and well and with you and guiding you through their higher self whenever you need them. Whenever you need them, you can tap into them. Right? So even if you have new situations 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 years after that person is gone, you can call on them in a dream. You can experience them in a dream. Right? They can guide you. They can speak to you. They can console you through a dream. Right? It's just the beauty. So we're only experiencing a very limited part of life. Very, very small. Right? The rest of it is much more expansive than we can even comprehend. Right? So this allowed me to come into this understanding, really this inner knowing, through experiencing it and seeing it, has given me a lot of comfort and loss. But the last few people that were very close to me that passed, took me a while to recover. But I spent a lot of time just reflecting on their memory, trying to figure out, okay, who do I actually want to be moving forward? Who am I going to be? What am I going to do? Right? You know what I'm saying? You lose somebody, you think that, okay, we're going to be together forever, and they pass. It's like, well, now what? Right? But I also know that was a part of my awakening. Right? That was a part of me, becoming who I am today. So you have to give yourself grace. You have to, I had to give myself grace. I had to console myself. This is where I get all the mirror work and the writing myself letters, talking to the old version of me, telling myself how proud I am, right? Holding myself to sleep. All of these things came from these situations, from real life experience, right? And in this experience, I'm able to grow into, a much better version of myself. But it just took time. It was a process that I wanted to rush at first, but it's always difficult dealing with death, especially when you don't expect it, right? When it comes out the blue, right? It's like it's nothing wrong. It's one thing to lose somebody and the situation's been going downhill, but imagine you just think everything is all right and they just up and leave, right? Or even worse, they pass away. No, everything was good. No downward slope at all. Just one day here, one day gone. Right? Very jarring. It turns your life upside down. Right? And so you can't rush it. You cannot rush that process. Of course, we question things. We question why certain people have to go. We question why them, and all kinds of, I guess, darker thoughts do go through your mind. Like, we have went through mine. I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but darker thoughts have went through my mind. What the hell? Why am I still here? Why not somebody else? You know what I'm saying? Why not somebody else? Why them? What do they do? Right. But you eventually settle into that inner knowing, everything is for a reason. Their soul chose a journey. The human side of you, of course, wants to cling to the known. But, that God side of you knows that this was that soul's mission. They completed their mission. It was time to go. Right. So it's just a long journey of constantly giving yourself peace, of trying to look at the positive in the situation, giving yourself patience, giving yourself love, and then figuring out who am I now? Or like, who am I now without this? How do I honor this person's memory? Right? How do I show up as a divine version of myself? And then you find comfort in that. But absolutely, it's always God's plan. And God's plan is our plan. Right? God's plan for me is my plan for me. Right? So, for sure. What's up, Mr. Yeah? Did I miss a different question? Favorite story from the Bible? Whew. I appreciate you for asking. Thank you. My favorite story from the Bible. I have different stories that I lean on for different reasons, right? Like, so I love the story of Samson for the wisdom that it gives you, for obvious reasons, right? As a man going through this world, and you see, even the strongest man was conquered by lust, right? Story of Job, someone who had everything and then had nothing, and even we had nothing, and everyone around him was looking at him and was telling him that, shit, maybe you should deny God, maybe you should lose your faith, maybe you should do something else, right? He held firm. And he wavered a little bit. He wavered a little bit until the Most High reminded him that he had ways that he did not understand. I have weapons you don't understand. Right? And when Job remembered this, he was blessed 2 times. Right? So, story of Job, because Job went through some shit. So anytime, I'm having a hard time, Job is a story that I lean on. I also lean on the story of the Moses just leading the Israelites from Egypt. I lean on that story all the time for metaphysical reasons, right? Like, damn, the Israelites, true, they had a savior. So Moses came into Egypt and showed 7 different miracles. All right, let's talk about this. So Moses goes into Egypt and shows 7 miracles, even goes as far as killing the firstborn children of the Egyptians and pulling the Israelites out of there. And then God specifically said, man, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart, so he's gonna let y'all go, but he's going to follow you. Israelites knew this, right? So the same way that in our life we experience the Most High doing all these things for us. You look back at your last 10 years of your life and you see miracle, miracle. I didn't know how this was going to happen, but it did. Didn't know how that was going to happen, but it did, right? So we see all these things unfolding. However, we get to a point where we have this promised land in our mind. Your desire is the promised land, right? Your prosperity, that $1 million that you dream of, that farmhouse that you dream of, living off the grid, whatever your dream is, right? This is the promised land. And Most High has shown you plenty times I can deliver. I always have. Yet we get into the unknown like the Israelites do, and we still start tripping. Saying, man, we should have stayed in slavery. It's terrible out here in this wilderness, right? Our minds crave that familiarity. The same way that we want to go, the same way that people stay in jobs they don't like, stay in relationships that don't serve them, right? Because your brain likes familiar situations, not necessarily comfortable, but when I say comfortable, I mean familiar. Your brain wants predictability, certainty, right? And so there's this constant battle between ourselves, between our mind, between us and ourselves. Okay, do I continue to lean into the unknown and walk with faith, or do I just forget about everything that God has done for me, and I start to go back to the past? I go back to a situation that I didn't even like. I go back to the job I didn't like. I go back to doing the same shit that wasn't doing me any benefit. Right? It's this constant battle. Right? And the Israelites, they showed that. Right? Even when, Moses went out and split the water, because the Most High told him to split the water. It wasn't until one of the Israelites walked all the way into the water, the water is above his nose, he can't breathe, and that's when the water actually parted so the Israelites could walk through. And even before that, right, the Israelites, they're sitting there and they're saying we should have been in slavery. We should have stayed in slavery. It was better there. When Moses started praying and asking God what to do, God specifically said, like, what are you praying to me for? And that always stands out to me, because a lot of times it's like we don't need to sit there and beg. We just need to make the next move. You're in that space. The promise is already given to you. All you have to do is keep moving, and it's a guarantee that you will get there. Just keep moving forward. Make the best decision at this moment. Your soul is just attracting experiences and pushing you to who you need to be. All you have to do is focus on the next moment. What's the best move I can make right now? And you will be delivered. Right? But so many times our first, inclination is to sit there and start begging and, pleading and wavering and saying, it's never working out. And why is it looking like this when all we have to do is keep going? That's it. All right, so, yeah, I think that's probably my favorite Bible story, is the Israelites being delivered. The Israelites being delivered from Egypt. For sure. Fight between flesh and spirit, absolutely. Something that I've been learning lately, how have I been applying it to my life? Let's see, what lesson stands out? Primary lesson that stands out is surrender. Interesting thing about a lot of these lectures is I talk about these lectures because something might happen to me and then I'm inspired to talk about a certain thing, right? And one of the key themes has been surrender, right? It's been giving up my way of thinking, how things should unfold, and leaning into that unknown and allowing the unknown to be that soul expanding space, right? So I do this all the time, right? I man, I utilize this in every aspect of my life. But what's actually where I utilize it the most is really with content and trading, my actual work. Right. I used to have these goals of make X amount a day in the market, X amount a week, X amount a month. And that would set me up. What I realized is when I was having that mindset, I would go into the market and I would force things sometimes. And because I would force things, some days I'll be up and then I'll go down, right? Or I'll take a way bigger loss. I'll lose way more than I should. Well, other days I make a lot because I'm over trading, but it wasn't sustainable, right? I was just inviting more risk than I should have. When I finally started surrendering to Most High is going to provide, Most High knows what I want. This is when I really started to scale up. When I say, you know what, I'm just going to execute my best. I'm going to take one trade a day. Before 11 a.m., one trade a day, and I'm going to get on about my life. And I'm going to spend time more with my family, right? I'm going to allow the prosperity to come through me because I really wanted to make more money so I could do more for them. But then once I started surrendering, now all of a sudden money flows. And I don't have to worry about daily targets. I just execute my plan over and over. And now I can spend more time with my family. And now I have more money to spend on them. So everything just works better than that, right? Even with content, I was trying to create content and push a certain narrative and, kind of copy other trends. And finally it was like, you know what? A couple of months ago, I just said, I'm just going to do what I like to do. I like to lecture. I like to have, discussions. I like to just have a template and start flowing. Right? I'm just going to do what I do. And I'm going to let the Most High bless me in whatever way, however it unfolds. Right? So, I used to be caught up in stuff like followers. When I was, I ran up a lot of followers on Instagram. Right? But I wasn't on TikTok or YouTube. And then finally I switched. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do TikTok and YouTube, but I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm just going to talk about specifically the things that I want to talk about. I'm not going to worry about, what's trending, what other people are discussing. I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'm going to make this very, very specific to my thought process. All right. And then I'll help people from that lane. And if the Most High wants to bless me through that way, then that will happen. All right. So surrender has been a primary focus in my life. I know that I'm provided for. I'm always provided for. Right? Prosperity is a promise to me. Right? It's not a hope. It's not a desire. It's a promise. And I was tracking. So from the beginning of the year, I was tracking all my trades. And then I didn't trade for the last 2-3 weeks. Man, maybe 3 weeks, right? But I also was tracking, my content, how I was doing. And since I have just started, kind of ignoring it, it's growing in a way, right? But the amount of fulfillment that I'm actually getting from doing this is much better, right? And the money that I'm making from the market is a lot better, right? Me being able to take off X amount of time, I couldn't do that before, but now I can do that. And it's all because of surrendering. So surrendering has been the most important lesson. Even when it's come to my family, because when it comes to my family, I think a lot differently than people in my family. So at one point in time, I wanted to quote unquote change them. But surrendering that, my journey is my journey. My truth is my truth. It might not be their truth. And their journey is their journey. Their truth might not be my truth. Right? Am I willing to sacrifice the precious time that I have left with, my parents as they age, in this battle to try to drag them to what I believe is enlightenment? Or do I just want to surrender that and I go on my journey, they go on theirs. I meet them where they're at and I enjoy the time that I have with them. I just love them as much as I can right now. I accept them exactly as they are. All right? And that has allowed, our relationship to be more fulfilling. Relationship with my sister as well. Right? With my friends as well. I have friends with completely different beliefs than mine. Right? And we debate and stuff about it, but I have no desire in changing them. No desire in changing them. And I understand a lot of the things that I say, a lot of my beliefs can come off as kind of polarizing because I am, especially in conversations. I try to be more open because I don't really want to drag someone into, I try to give things from an open perspective because we're all looking for the same thing. But when I get in my moods and, I'm talking shit, I have my beliefs and my truths. I have things that I believe in, as we all do, right? So some of those thoughts can be polarized, right? Especially when it comes to religious matters, especially when it comes to melanated matters, right? It's just who I am, right? So surrendering and say, okay, look, my views are my views, your views are your views. You know what I'm saying? We're all divine. We still all, in this journey together. We're all trying to figure it out together. I got no less love for you, man. Matter of fact, I have more love for you if we can share our opinions and bounce ideas off of each other, right? So I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that question. It was a long-winded response, but I appreciate that. Ooh. List everything you loved about the person and embody those qualities so they live on through you. Absolutely. That's a divine perspective. That's a very divine perspective. Right? Embody. How do I, because whether we do that or not, they will live on through us. Right? But the best thing that we can do is embody who we want to be. Embody the best attributes of that person. Allow them to truly live on through us. Allow them to make a mark on this world through us. Right? The process. What did the process look like? Growing mentally, physically, and spiritually? It's always looked kind of messy, to be completely honest. I always felt like until recently, man, until the last year and a half, I always felt like my mindset was ahead of my living situation. Right? I always understood things in theory, but I could not see a lot of things materializing in my life. Right? So we get on this spiritual path and we start to desire to take control of our life. Right? I want to manifest shit, man. I want my life to look a certain way, to be a certain way. So we go down this path, and sometimes some people, their life changes pretty fast. And sometimes we could judge our life and feel like it's not switching fast enough. And that's how I felt for a while. So when I first kind of went down the spiritual path, so I was in a fire. I was in a house fire back in 2014. And I was in the hospital, and that's the first time that I really started remembering that, oh shit, I used to have visions when I was a child. I used to have visions when I was younger. And so when I was tapping in like that, um, someone actually gave me a job in tech at that time, or they told me to get a certificate and they would give me a job, because at that time I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just bouncing around job to job, just doing a bunch of random shit. So when I got that job, and at that time, like my spiritual development and my emotional intelligence and all that, that became the number one priority in my life, right? And to be honest, most of my life before 2014 truly feels like a blur. Like it's very spotty. And so that was really a wake up call. And there's several spiritual reasons for that, why I don't really remember much before or much in detail. But after that, spirituality became my number one thing. But I was always looking for purpose. I never liked tech. I was good at tech. It paid well. I was moving up the corporate ladders. I worked at a whole bunch of big companies. I worked at Amazon for a little bit, worked at Apple, in the tech department. But I never felt fulfilled in those roles at all. I always felt like I should be doing something else, right? And even when it came to manifesting, I would know all these things conceptually, but nothing really clicked. I felt like I knew knowledge, but I couldn't. It was difficult for me to implement it in my life. Right? And so, I went through 8-9 years of just hunting knowledge, trying to force knowledge into my mind, right? Consuming a whole bunch of psychedelics, right? Dealing with a lot of women. So just feeling lost and thinking that I could validate myself by having knowledge, or validate myself by getting all of this quote unquote enlightenment. And it wasn't until I just relaxed into who I was and said, you know what, information will come when it's right. And that happened about 2 years ago. And then once I did that, it's like my life just snapped into place. All of a sudden, how I made money came into the picture. Relationships started changing. The whole trajectory of my life changed with surrendering. But most of that spiritual growth, that mental, that emotional growth, it was messy. Right? A lot of the wisdom that I have, especially about women, I didn't get it from books. I got it from experience. Right? So, dealt with women, been in very bad situations, very good situations. But it's all helped me, right? Like I said, man, I've been in even financial situations. Right? I'm going through the spiritual journey, and I'm homeless for a while, right? Cars repossessed, got evicted a couple times, got evicted. Then my ex passed, so there was a whirlwind over about 8 years. It was a whirlwind. I'm getting a lot of information, but I don't see my life changing. I don't feel purposeful. Yeah, I can have good conversations with people, but I was more so looking for information instead of really feeling what the truth was to me. But once I finally surrendered, I was just like, okay, I'm going to start feeling things for what feels like truth, what really resonates with my soul, right? That's when, everything changed for me. So my spiritual journey has been a long journey. It's been difficult. It's been very lonely as well, right? I've had a lot of mystical experiences where they do shake me. They're not all, love and light. Even the downloads that I have, a lot of them aren't, especially in the beginning, they weren't easy to accept. There's really nobody I could talk to about it. I remember trying to talk to my mom about it sometimes, and she looked at me like she was about to try to put me on medicine. I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep this shit to myself, man. So, You know what I am grateful for? I'm grateful for the internet, especially recently, because up until, man, a few years ago, I didn't think there were a lot of people that thought like me. But now I'm seeing that there are. Right? So when you're on that spiritual path and you feel like, man, I'm separating from everybody, I don't really, it's hard for me to relate to people now. But I always feel like I'm always meeting people where they are. Right? It's very rare that someone's meeting me where I am. And so, it's a lonely journey. And I think that is kind of a common staple on the spiritual path, is you have to separate to elevate. And then once you elevate, you have to be reintroduced to the world. You have to re-find people that, resonate with you. And, that takes time. Even, I was just having this conversation, I think earlier today or yesterday, with this goddess, right? We were talking about small talk. And I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm good at small talk. Or I don't like I don't remember if I said I'm not good at it or I don't like it. And she was like, no, I think you're actually pretty good at it. In my mind, I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. That's good to know from somebody. But the more deep you get in the spiritual path, you do start to, life is about balance, man. Life is about balance. You don't want to get to a point where you just cannot have regular conversations with people. You're so far off the edge, so far off the cliff that you struggle to just build common human connections, have small talk. Right? Because small talk really is how a lot of things get built upon, right? You don't walk up to somebody and shake their hand and immediately ask them, what is your religious belief? You don't immediately jump into, hey, what do you think happens when you die? Right? You have to build into that. It's how you build connection. So once you isolate, then you elevate, and then you have to reconnect, you still have to have your humanity and your emotional intelligence. So it's important to be well-rounded. But that journey, long story short, before I start rambling again, that journey was messy for your boy. Journey was messy for me. Right. But I think that's normal. It goes back to what we were talking about, man, that cycle of death and rebirth that we all experience. Right? That awakening. We think that, we're going up and coming down like Jacob's ladder. Right? When Jacob was in the wilderness and he saw the ladder that led to God, he saw angels ascending and descending this ladder. It was just a metaphor for spiritual growth. Sometimes we're going up, sometimes we're going down. But really it should be horizontal, right? Sometimes we're going up and down, but we're always still going forward. This is kind of how that journey is. So appreciate that question as well, bro. Appreciate that. All right. See if I missed anything. All right, that must be a cue. I'm tired anyway, man. You can probably tell I start slowing down when I get tired. But it's going to end this with a prayer, man. I appreciate y'all today, right? But just as a summary, right? Life is going to be this cycle of death, this cycle of rebirth, right? It don't look like I've been through anything. That gets like nerves. Girl, I drank water. That's why. But I appreciate that, man. But, just to summarize everything, right? Life is going to be this constant cycle, just like in nature, right? Everything is a metaphor for everything. The universe is within you. The stories that we hear about the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? The story we hear about, Jesus passing away, being crucified, and then rising from the dead, having to stay in the tomb, right? Oh, it was a question. I thought you were giving me a compliment. I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. But if that's a question, um, no, I guess not. I thought you were just telling me that, but nah, I haven't heard anybody tell me that. It doesn't look like I've been through anything. So, no, I haven't had. Oh, I ain't had anybody tell me that. It doesn't look like you. But then again, but I would take that as a divine compliment. Appreciate it. If I was you, I would take that as a compliment. I mean, I think it's definitely a compliment, right? Why would that get on your nerves? But my philosophy is, I do think most people do struggle to receive. And, even the book says you should be a cheerful receiver and a cheerful giver, right? When people are giving you compliments, I mean, that's God giving you a compliment. You accept it, you feel it, you allow it to fill you up, right? We can play the humble game and be like, oh, stop it, right? Oh, I don't like that, right? But if that was God telling you that, what would you do? Right? This is God giving you a compliment. Sometimes, you ever just been working on a certain thing. Maybe you're working on a certain affirmation and someone comes up to you and they tell you your affirmation and a compliment. And in that moment, it's like your heart is about to bust out your chest. You're like, oh man, God, you hear me, right? Because we're all one mind. We are all one mind. One mind experiencing life from 100 different perspectives. Right? From infinite different perspectives, really. That girl exotic. That girl exotic. I see. Exotic. Appreciate you, Miss Kimberly. Thank you. Yeah, man, we got to be cheerful receivers. We got to receive graciously those compliments. That is God complimenting you. Right? This is God complimenting you. I don't even care if I believe. I just take it all as sincere. You could be sarcastic with me, and I'm going to take it as, okay, thank you. Right? How you meant to say it is on you. How I take it is on me. Right? I do love women with short hair. I do love, I love women with short hair. I don't know why. Well, shit. All right, let's be real. I just like women, period. Short hair, long hair, all that, right? But short hair is cool. Long hair is cool. Medium hair is cool too. You know, light skin, dark skin, it's all cool to me. Brown eyes, green eyes, hazel eyes, blue eyes. You know what I'm saying? It's all beautiful to me. You know what I'm saying? God made all these different flavors. Who am I to deny? Right? If you get a pack of Starbursts, are you just gonna eat one pack? Or are you just gonna eat one color? You get a whole pack of Skittles, you just gonna eat one color Skittles? Right? No, you're gonna taste a little bit of everything. You gotta see what your preference is, see what you like. Right? Of course you do. Of course you only eat one. Not your boy. Not your boy. I like all the flavors. I want the whole variety pack. You went through all the flavors? You went through all the flavors already. I ain't been through all of them yet. I gotta catch up. I got to catch up, girl. You done been through all the flavors already. I got to catch up. Not right now, though, because I'm disciplined right now. Yeah, see? But you had to try all of the different packs to realize, oh, no, I like the tropical ones. Right? I didn't know what I liked until I started trying them. I was like, ooh, this one's tasty. Oh, this one's a little bit different. Oh, this one does some interesting things to me. Right? Oh, shit, I like those. I like this one too. You know what I'm saying? I like that one too. So I gotta try them out, man. I actually like the original ones. I actually like, but this is all a joke, by the way. I don't really try that many different flavors. I've only tried a couple flavors in my life. So. I'm probably the most innocent person on this damn live right now. I know I'm more innocent than at least one of y'all. Nah, it's me. It's me. Good try, though. Reborn, huh? I'm gonna start using that line. I'm reborn. Oh man, 13 years. Dang. $13 years. How long ago? Sheesh. That's cool. It's not any good flavors out here. It's not too many good flavors to try. Nah, you weren't literally talking about candy. You see, don't start lying. You just talking about you reborn. Now you already lying. You need to be reborn again. Go dip yourself back into that baptismal pool. That girl was reborn 3 minutes ago. Is already lying. That's crazy. That's so wild. Uh, nah, but I've probably only been with like 3 women in my life. And, you know, So who got less than 3? So who got less than 3? Ah, dang. Dang, that's so beautiful. Just been with one person, that's so man, that's special. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Lost how? If you don't mind me asking. No, I said lost how, if you don't mind me asking. How'd you lose them? Yeah, we ain't gotta talk about your bodies no more. We know you lost count. Oh man, I am so sorry to hear that. And my condolences to you. My condolences and my prayers. Truly. My condolences. Truly. Man, life is so precious. My goodness. Life is so precious. I remember when I lost, yeah, my ex transition, we never really get over it, right? It just becomes something that we carry. We get strength from it, we get wisdom from it, but they never truly leave us. We're never truly alone, right? So, man, I'm sending you all the love, right? All the love, all the divine healing. Yeah. And I just pray that that you can constantly stay in communion with them, right? Through dreams, through visions. But truly, my love and condolences. Yeah, never get over it. Never get over it. Part of me doesn't even want to. Just like, yeah, yep. How long ago was that? mom transition. Wasn't too long ago, was it? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's not long ago at all. Yeah, for sure. We'll always be with you. How poetic is that? That now you get to carry them, you know, forever. You know, yeah, yeah. You got close ancestors now. The closest. The closest. Shoot, always ready to intervene. Right? You got the closest of ancestors now, always ready to intervene. Just gives you a little bit more spiritual power too, more protection, more wisdom. Healing out, man. It's interesting that you say that, right? I've always, I've talked about this in recent lectures, but and I say healing. And I know really I was like, man, I pray and wish healing on you. Interesting thing about healing, my belief is that there are certain things that people go through there's certain things that people go through where it almost becomes unfair to tell them to heal, right? It's like what is healing to us, right? Healing is so subjective, right? It's something that is in the eye of the beholder. See, there's certain people that healing is simply, I finally get to a point where the emotional blowback of thinking about that experience isn't as destructive as it once was. You know, that's it, right? Uh, and so when we're on this journey, it's constantly like, okay, what is the next step? The first step for me might be another vulnerable moment, right? The first step for me was showering every day. And I get up and actually take care of myself every day. The first step, right? How can I just be better, right? Like, all right, now I can feel like, all right, I'm doing something, right? And then eventually you get to a point where, all right, the pain's manageable. Now I can actually go about and do things. But healing, man, it's such an interesting concept because everyone experiences it so uniquely, and we could never go into someone else's mind to truly understand how they feel, all right, what they had to experience, and how that situation truly impacted them. That's why it's so important to give ourselves that grace and give ourselves that intimacy that we want from other people. Because if we can't do it, and we're the only people that truly know how it feels, right? I'm the only person in the world that knows how I feel. You're the only person in the world that knows how you feel. if I don't validate myself, if I don't give myself intimacy, if I don't hug myself and tell myself it's going to be okay and love on myself, man, there's no one who could ever fill that void. There's no one who could ever coach me into healing. I'll just look at them and say, you don't understand. It sounds, what you're saying sounds nice, but you don't know. Right? And so there's this balancing act as well, where when you go down that journey, it can turn into a bitter journey quickly. Right? If I'm not giving myself love and I have all these other people telling me how I should heal, and I'm looking at them like, well, what the hell do you know? You don't know me. You're not in my mind. Right? Now it becomes a lot easier for me to shut things off, shut these people off. And, so, healing is it's a delicate thing, right? And even we throw that term around loosely. People will say things like, oh, come into the situation healed. Who's the judge of healed? Right? Who makes the decision on what is healed and not? What does that truly mean? Right? Because, healing is so different. It's so unique. So, we just do the best that we can in life. We try to show up as best as we can. We honor the memory of those that lost, and we handle our pain in the most productive way that we know how. Also with the understanding that I've never experienced this before. This is new. But I've never experienced this before. I wasn't prepared to experience. Right? Like I said, my situation, it was out the blue. I didn't know. One night, she was there, and next she was gone, right? And some people have time, but it doesn't matter if you know. It doesn't matter if you have years. You'll never be prepared for that day. You'll never be prepared for that day where it's like, okay, this is the last time we ever gonna talk. In this physical reality, this will be the last time we speak. You can't be prepared for it, right? So, we just do the best that we can. We just do the best that we can. Right? I remember, even with other relatives, right, that I knew health was going downhill. And you still get to that point. You still get to that transition point. And it's a slap in the face. Right? It is it's such a hit. There's no preparation on this human level. No preparation. Right? Dang. Dang. Why did she do that? I don't ask that in a judgmental way. I'm saying, it's probably a lot to type. Sometimes you don't want people in your business. Sometimes you don't want to put a burden on other people. Sometimes you just are doing what you feel is right? Yeah, even a situation like that I read, it's like we do the best with the information that we have. We make the best decision, and we move forward with that. All right. But man, my condolences. This is such a common human experience, is that in our human experience, we experience loss. And we experience loss in such profoundly different ways. We all deal with loss in such profoundly different ways. And then we go back home and we are by ourselves with that loss. And, I might lose someone to death. Someone else loses someone to a breakup. Who's to say who it truly hurts more for? Right? Who's to be the judge of that? Right? Who really knows? Could they be the same? We might be dealing with them differently, whatever the case may be. But we all just experience loss. We deal with it in the best way possible. And then we just honor the memory of that person. And we step into a better version of ourselves, so we can live a better life. Understanding that there has to be some kind of divine purpose, right? This is not a universe of accidents, coincidences. Right? This is a divine place of order, purpose. Yeah, for sure. We absolutely all need grace and to be loved through it. And it all starts with ourselves. It all starts with giving myself grace and saying, all right, this is what you can do today. Alex, this is what you can do today. Right? This is how I'm going to love myself today through this. Okay? You do that shit over. You show up for yourself every single day, right? Yeah. Death has strengthened my faith tremendously. Any insight on losing someone? I don't have any personal insight on that. I don't have any personal insight. I don't know anyone personally I know people. I don't know anyone that I was close to that has lost that way. So I can't even speak in terms of my own knowledge, in terms of downloads or anything on someone unaliving themselves. I know I'll get banned if I say the actual word. I'm not trying to be insensitive. But no, I don't have any wise words for that one. Cause we might have to talk. We might have to talk about that one later. But no, I don't. When it's time, you're not going to be able to stop yourself from sharing it. So, always trust in that divine timing. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid it. All right, y'all. This is getting a little heavy. I need to do some meditating. I've stirred up some emotions. I appreciate y'all. But let's end this one with a prayer. All right, Heavenly Father, we lean into your promise, into your vow that everything that happens in our life is purposeful. It's for a reason. It's meant to bring us closer to you, bring us closer to alignment with the things that we desire. I pray that you constantly walk with us step by step, and you remind us at every moment how much you love us, and remind us that the love that we are seeking is always within us. I pray for anyone that's going through loss, that's experiencing heartbreak, that you provide them with the peace, with the love, with the wisdom that only comes from you. And also remind them that that love, that wisdom, that intimacy, right, that divine union that they are seeking is within them and is always able to be tapped into. Cool. All right, y'all. I see you all as beautiful, right? As divine, as prosperous, wealthy, of course, in alignment with everything that you desire, right? If you don't feel that way, it's cool because I see you as that way anyway. So I know that it must be true. I know it must be true. All right, y'all stay divine, y'all stay prosperous, you stay the gods and the goddesses that you are. And until next time, probably talk tomorrow. But God willing, we'll talk tomorrow, right? But y'all have a good evening, a blessed evening. Appreciate you, man.